Welcome back to the wall maze playground. We're going to be driving to point C today. Let's start by starting a new blocks project in VexVR. And we of course are going to scroll all the way down to the last playground, which is the wall maze. Here we want to open our playground to get a sense of where we're going. And what we're going to be doing is driving from the start all the way to point C. We're going to get here by using sensors, which means we are not going to use this drive forward for 200 millimeters block at all. I'm just going to park it there to remind myself we're not using that one. Instead, we are going to use the drive forward block with our sensors, including waiting until the bumper sensor gets pushed. That will be a major component of our wall maze. And we are going to try to drive to point C by noting every time the bumper is pushed, we take some kind of action. Most of the time we're going to be turning left or right. In this case, I see that my robot, when it bumps into the first wall, if it turned right, it would hit another wall, right? So it needs to turn left, especially because that looks like a good way to get to point C. So I'll change this right to a left, and I'll just run one more time, and there we go. As we did with going to point A and point 2, we are going to continue this process of every time we hit a wall, we make a turn. So I'm actually going to make my life easier by duplicating this block, just parking it on the side so I can get this sequence together anytime I want to. For example, right now I know the next time I hit a wall, I want to make a right. So I just have to change this to making a right turn. Every time I add some code, I'm going to run it so that I can test it and see, is it working properly? I would say yes. Now I can move forward. When I bump into this wall, I think it'll be time to make a left. So I'm going to grab this block, this not just one block, but unit of blocks, duplicate it and bring it over here. And again, I believe I'm making a left next, so let's run it. First wall, second wall, third wall, and yes, now I am facing the right direction to continue moving on toward the C. The funny thing about this intersection, as you may remember from working on point B the other day, is there is no wall to bounce off of or no wall to tap before you make the next turn. This is a very open intersection. There's nothing to bump into here. Exactly where I want to make my turn. So I need to use a different sensor, don't I? I'm going to drive forward, wait until my distance sensor picks up a value that is in the right spot. Oh, I've got that already. I need I'm going to be using the less than comparison. And I'm going to see when is my front distance less than the value it should be. When it's this distance from the wall, I want it to turn. So right now, I believe it's about, well, actually I can even check. If I open, I can tell I'm 523 millimeters from the wall. So I know I could try perhaps 400 or 300 millimeters from this wall. I think halfway would be too much, so maybe something like 350. And again, I'm getting that value by looking at what is the current distance to the wall. So we said about 350 might work. At that point, we will want to, our next turn should be a right turn. So let me pull out my right turn like that. And let's see what happens. We bump into, well, 1, 2, 3, and now, okay, so I made my turn at 350. I feel like it's a little bit off center, you know, there's kind of it's very tight on the right side and there's a lot of space on the left side. I'm afraid I'm going to skim against the wall here. So why don't I make this number a little bit smaller so that I'll turn when I'm closer to the wall. I think I'm going to go for 325, something like that. Okay, so this looks fairly good. We're not going to bump against this wall. I have plenty of space on this side. It's not perfectly centered, but I think we're going to do fine. If you want to center yours, you certainly can play with this value a little bit more. And now we would probably want to continue using our bumper sensor at the next turn. Oh, before we do that, I would suggest one thing. You may recall that we copied these 3 blocks so that we can easily duplicate them and use them in our program. I'm going to do the same thing with this sequence of 3 blocks where we drive forward and use the front distance sensor. So let me duplicate that and just park it over here because I might need this later in the program and it just makes my life easier if I have it all together. So what you really want to continue doing is using a sequence like this where you're constantly driving forward, waiting for sensor input, and when you get that input, you're making a left or a right turn, or at the very end of the program, when you get that sensor input, you're going to make a stop. So at the very end of the program, you're going to want to stop driving when you probably bump into this wall right by the sea. So make sure that you are using your 3 blocks together here and here in order to use your sensor input so that you know how far forward to go before you make your next turn or when it's time to stop.